Every year, American gardeners spend billions of dollars on synthetic soil products designed to feed plants directly and bypass the biology that built every productive acre of farmland on Earth. Bags of soluble nitrogen that leach away in rain, liquid fertilizers that spike growth for 2 weeks and crash the microbial population for 2 months. Meanwhile, one of the cheapest, most abundant kitchen staples on the planet, ordinary rice, can permanently multiply the earthworm population in your soil, trigger explosive microbial growth, and boost crop yields by up to 25%. All for pennies. The agrochemical industry generates hundreds of billions of dollars annually by making sure you never connect a 50-cent bag of rice to the living system it activates underground. The record opens beneath your feet. 1 square meter of healthy garden soil can contain over 300 earthworms. Each one processes its own body weight in organic matter every single day, converting dead plant material into castings so nutrient-dense that they contain 5 times more nitrogen, 7 times more phosphorus, and 11 times more potassium than the surrounding soil. Earthworms are not optional inhabitants of a productive garden. They are the engine. A 2014 meta-analysis published in Scientific Reports, one of the most cited soil ecology papers of the past decade, analyzed 58 controlled studies spanning over a century of field research. The finding was unambiguous. Earthworm presence in agricultural soils increases crop yield by an average of 25%, above-ground biomass by 23%, and total plant biomass by 21%. The effects were strongest when organic residues were present in the soil, exactly the conditions rice creates. A 2023 study published in Nature Communications went further, estimating that earthworms contribute to roughly 6.5% of total global grain production. They are not a garden bonus. They are a food security infrastructure that most gardeners have never been taught to feed. So what do earthworms eat? Not soil, not roots, not fertilizer. Earthworms eat microbes. Bacteria and fungi that colonize decomposing organic matter are the primary food source for every earthworm species in your garden. The more microbial activity in your soil, the more earthworms arrive, reproduce, and stay. The question is not how to buy worms, it is how to feed the organisms that feed them. And rice, in 4 different forms, does exactly that. The knowledge was never lost. It was sitting in your kitchen. Until now. Here are the 4 rice tricks they never connected for you. Trick 1. Cooked rice. The fast-acting worm magnet. A handful of plain cooked rice placed on the soil surface or buried 1 inch below it does something no synthetic product can replicate. Within 24 to 48 hours, the starch in the rice begins to break down. Bacteria arrive first, colonizing the grain surfaces and consuming the simple sugars released during decomposition. Fungi follow within days, threading their hyphae through the softening grains and extending their networks outward into the surrounding soil. That concentrated microbial bloom is precisely what earthworms detect and move toward. Earthworms do not eat the rice. They eat the microbial film that the rice generates. The distinction matters because it explains why a few tablespoons of cooked rice attract more worms than a full application of synthetic fertilizer. Fertilizer feeds plants. Rice feeds the organisms that earthworms consume. The signal is biological, not chemical. Multiple university extension programs confirm this mechanism. Cornell Cooperative Extension, the University of Connecticut Soil Testing Laboratory, Ohio State University, Utah State University, and Purdue University Extension. Vermicomposting guides all list plain cooked rice and grains as excellent food for composting worms. The consensus across every extension guide is identical. Cooked rice without oil, salt, or seasoning is one of the fastest decomposing organic inputs you can add to soil or a worm system. It jumpstarts microbial activity within hours. The application is simple. Scatter 2 to 3 tablespoons of plain cooked rice per square foot across your garden bed. Lightly press it into the surface and cover with a thin layer of mulch. The mulch retains moisture and keeps the rice from drying out before microbes can colonize it. Repeat once every 2 to 3 weeks during the growing season. Within a month, earthworm casting density in treated beds will be visibly higher than in untreated beds. The cost is effectively zero. The biological return compounds with every application. The moderation warning is science-backed. Too much starchy material applied at once can temporarily create anaerobic conditions as microbial oxygen consumption spikes. Small, frequent applications outperform large, single dumps every time. Feed the system steadily, not all at once. Trick 2. Crushed uncooked rice. The slow-release underground feeder. Cooked rice works fast because the starches are already gelatinized and immediately available to microbes. Crushed uncooked rice works differently. The raw starch granules break down more slowly, providing a sustained food source for microbial populations over weeks rather than days. The effect is a longer, steadier biological signal that keeps earthworms active in the treated zone across an entire growing period, rather than a short burst that fades. Vermicomposting research supports the mechanism directly. A 2016 study published in the International Journal of Environmental Health by Porzamani and colleagues tested rice bran and broken rice residues as feedstock for earthworm systems. The study documented that rice bran combined with food waste produced high-quality vermicompost with rapid stabilization and significant nutrient enrichment. The earthworms processed the rice-based substrate efficiently, and the resulting castings showed elevated nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium levels compared to non-rice controls. The broader principle confirmed across multiple papers in soil biology and biochemistry and applied soil ecology is that labile carbon sources, starches, sugars, and simple carbohydrates are the single most effective driver of earthworm reproduction and biomass gain when mixed into compost or soil. Raw rice is one of the cheapest, most shelf-stable carbon sources available to any gardener. Crush dry rice lightly with a rolling pin or pulse it briefly in a blender. You are not making flour. You are cracking the grain open to expose the starch interior to soil moisture and microbial access. Scatter the crushed rice at 1 to 2 tablespoons per square foot and work it lightly into the top 2 inches of soil. Cover with mulch. The crushed grains will absorb moisture from the soil, swell, and begin releasing starch over the following 2 to 4 weeks. Microbial populations build steadily around each grain fragment, and earthworms follow. For maximum effect, alternate between cooked rice applications every 2 weeks and crushed raw rice applications monthly. The cooked rice provides the fast microbial spike. The crushed raw rice provides the sustained baseline. Together, they create a continuous feeding cycle that keeps earthworm populations elevated across the entire season. Trick 3. Fermented rice water. The liquid microbial accelerator. This is the trick with the strongest direct scientific backing, and the one that connects rice to soil biology through published, peer-reviewed field trials rather than extension guidelines alone. When you rinse uncooked rice before cooking, the cloudy water that washes off contains dissolved starches, amino acids, B vitamins, phosphorus, potassium, and a suite of micronutrients leached from the grain surface. When that water is fermented at room temperature for 24 to 48 hours, it becomes a concentrated liquid microbial inoculant that can be applied directly to garden soil. A 2023 study by Nabai and colleagues, published in Helion and indexed through PMC, tested fermented washed rice water across 3 consecutive field planting cycles. The results were remarkable. Fermented rice water significantly increased beneficial soil bacterial populations, including nitrogen-fixing bacteria and phosphorus and potassium solubilizing organisms. Plant growth improved measurably, nutrient uptake increased. Soil bacterial diversity rose across every treated plot compared to the untreated controls. A 2021 study by the same research group, published in the journal Sustainability, documented the fermentation process in detail. Allowing washed rice water to sit at room temperature for 2 to 3 days dramatically increases concentrations of beneficial bacteria while also raising nutrient levels in the liquid itself. The fermented product is richer in available nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium than the raw rinse water, and delivers those nutrients alongside a living microbial population rather than in isolated chemical form. The application method is straightforward. Rinse 1 cup of uncooked rice in 2 cups of water. Save the cloudy rinse water in a jar or bottle. Cover loosely to allow gas exchange and leave at room temperature for 2 to 3 days. The liquid will develop a slightly sour smell, which indicates active fermentation. Dilute the fermented rice water 1-to-1 with fresh water and apply directly to the soil around your plants once per week. You are not feeding the plant. You are feeding the microbial community in the rhizosphere, the same community that earthworms consume, the same community that makes nutrients available to roots. Fermented rice water is a living soil drench that costs nothing, uses a kitchen byproduct most people pour down the drain, and delivers measurable results confirmed across multiple peer-reviewed field trials. Trick 4. Rice in the worm bin and compost pile. The population multiplier. The first 3 tricks work in the garden bed. The 4th trick works in the systems that supply your garden, your worm bin, and your compost pile, and it amplifies the output of both. Earthworms in a controlled bin environment respond to rice-based inputs with measurable increases in reproduction rate and biomass, and in casting production. Every University Extension vermicomposting guide that lists approved feedstocks includes cooked rice, cooked grains, and rice residues among the top-tier food sources for composting worms. The reason is the same mechanism that operates in the garden bed. Rice generates a dense microbial bloom that worms consume voraciously. A 2018 study by Eliamin and colleagues, published in the International Journal of Environmental Research and Public Health, tested the interaction between earthworms, rice straw, and plants in controlled soil systems. Rice residues significantly increased earthworm body weight and biomass while reducing mortality. The earthworms fed on the microbial communities colonizing the rice material and converted it into castings that measurably improved soil structure and nutrient availability. A 2020 study published in PeerJ documented that earthworms completely consumed rice straw residues within 4 weeks in mesocosm experiments, while identical residues without earthworms remained largely intact after 18 weeks. The earthworms converted the rice carbon into organic carbon, increasing the total carbon content of the soil, while simultaneously boosting enzyme activity across multiple nutrient cycling pathways. The practical application has 2 layers. In your worm bin, add small amounts of cooked rice, 2 to 3 tablespoons per feeding, mixed in with your regular kitchen scraps and bedding. The rice accelerates microbial colonization of the entire bin contents, which increases worm feeding speed and casting production. In your compost pile, scatter a thin layer of crushed raw rice or leftover cooked rice between your green and brown layers. The starch accelerates decomposition of the surrounding material by feeding the bacterial populations that break down cellulose and lignin. The output of both systems, worm castings and finished compost, goes back into the garden beds, where it continues feeding the earthworm populations you are building with tricks 1 through 3. The system is circular. Rice feeds microbes. Microbes feed worms. Worms produce castings. Castings build soil. Soil grows food. The cost of entering this cycle is a handful of rice. But the knowledge survived. Rice as a soil biology driver never disappeared into agricultural industry archives or product development pipelines. While the synthetic input system was consolidating into a multi-hundred-billion-dollar machine, traditional farming communities across Asia used rice water, rice straw, and rice residues as primary soil amendments for thousands of years without interruption. Japanese natural farming traditions, preserved through the 20th century by practitioners like Masanobu Fukuoka, incorporated fermented rice preparations as standard soil treatments decades before Western soil science published its first peer-reviewed paper on the mechanism. Korean natural farming systems codified rice-based microbial inoculants as a core practice generations ago. Rice paddy farmers across Southeast Asia returned rice straw and residues to their fields for centuries, maintaining earthworm populations and soil fertility without synthetic inputs. Western science caught up. Van Groenigen's 2014 meta-analysis in Scientific Reports quantified what traditional farmers already knew, that earthworms increase yields by 25% when organic residues are present. Nabai's 2021 and 2023 field studies confirmed what Korean and Japanese farmers had practiced for generations, that fermented rice water measurably improves soil biology and plant growth. The 2018 and 2020 studies on rice residues and earthworm interactions documented what every rice paddy farmer in history could have told you, that worms thrive on rice. Today, the knowledge is accelerating in home gardens, not because the industry permitted it, but because gardeners watching their fertilizer bills climb and their soil biology collapse started asking why a 50-cent bag of rice could do what a $50 jug of liquid fertilizer never could. The silence around rice as a soil amendment is breaking. You can grow what they overlooked. Start with what you have. If you cook rice, save the rinse water tonight and ferment it for 3 days. If you have leftover cooked rice, scatter it on your garden bed tomorrow morning and cover it with mulch. If you run a worm bin, add a small handful of cooked rice at your next feeding and watch the population response within 2 weeks. If your garden soil is biologically dead, combine all 4 tricks across a single season and watch the earthworm population rebuild from nothing. The total investment for all 4 rice tricks applied across a full growing season runs under $5. That is less than the price of a single bottle of liquid fertilizer at any garden center. And these tricks do not stop working when the bottle is empty. Each application feeds the microbial community that feeds the earthworms, that produce the castings, that build the soil that grows the food. The cycle is self-reinforcing. The cost approaches zero. The biology compounds year after year. The agrochemical industry profits from the assumption that soil fertility must be purchased in bags and bottles every season. These 4 rice tricks begin with the opposite truth. The cheapest staple in your kitchen can permanently activate the most powerful biological workforce in your garden, and the worms will do the rest for free. The knowledge was never lost. It was waiting in the rice pot, in the rinse water, in the compost pile, in the hands of farmers who never needed a synthetic product to build living soil. If this seed was finally freed for you, subscribe to Hank's gardening journey and hit the bell. Every like and every share helps break the silence. The next seed breaks free soon.